Top 3 foods to prevent leg cramps in seniors. Strengthen your legs. Do you often experience leg cramps that disrupt your sleep or make movement difficult? This is a common issue among older adults, but the good news is there's a solution. In today's video, we'll share 3 simple yet effective foods that can help reduce cramps, improve muscle strength, and keep your legs healthy and strong. Make sure to watch until the end to discover life-changing nutritional tips that will help you enjoy a more active and vibrant lifestyle. Don't forget to leave a comment letting us know where you're watching from and share any questions you may have. Remember to hit the like button to support this video and subscribe to our channel so you won't miss out on more useful health tips. 1. Eggs. Leg cramps are a common issue among older adults, causing discomfort, pain, and a lower quality of life. However, few people realize that a proper diet can help address this problem. One of the simplest, most accessible, yet highly beneficial foods is eggs. With their rich nutritional content, eggs not only help prevent cramps but also enhance muscle, nerve, and bone health in seniors. The role of high-quality protein. Protein is a crucial factor in maintaining and repairing muscles. Over time, older adults often experience natural muscle loss due to aging, a condition known as sarcopenia. This increases the risk of cramps, muscle weakness, and reduced mobility. Eggs are an excellent source of high-quality protein, often referred to as the gold standard in nutrition. A single egg contains about 6 grams of complete protein, meaning it includes all 9 essential amino acids that the body cannot produce on its own. These amino acids play a vital role in repairing damaged muscle fibers, improving elasticity, and increasing muscle strength. Moreover, the protein in eggs helps reduce muscle fatigue and enhances recovery after daily physical activities. For seniors who frequently experience nighttime cramps, incorporating protein from eggs can be a natural and effective way to improve sleep quality and overall health. Vitamin D, supporting muscle and bone health. Vitamin D is essential for calcium absorption and maintaining the health of the musculoskeletal system. A deficiency in vitamin D can lead to muscle weakness, cramps, and chronic pain. Eggs, particularly the yolk, are a natural source of vitamin D. This is especially beneficial for older adults, who often have limited exposure to sunlight due to reduced outdoor activity or mobility. Additionally, vitamin D supports muscle flexibility and helps prevent unwanted muscle contractions. Combining eggs with calcium-rich foods like milk or leafy greens can maximize their benefits, keeping bones strong and muscles more agile. Vitamin B12, a nutrient for nerve protection and cramp prevention. Vitamin B12 plays a crucial role in maintaining nerve function. It is essential for protecting the myelin sheath, which surrounds nerves and facilitates effective nerve signal transmission. In older adults, vitamin B12 deficiency is common due to reduced absorption or a diet lacking animal-based foods. A lack of B12 can lead to symptoms like cramps, tingling, numbness in the limbs, or even long-term nerve damage. Eggs, especially the yolk, are a rich and easily digestible source of vitamin B12, making them ideal for seniors. Consuming 6 to 7 eggs weekly can provide sufficient B12 to support nerve health, reduce cramp risks, and address other neurological concerns. How to use eggs properly. While eggs are a fantastic food choice, consuming them correctly and in the right amount is key to maximizing their benefits without side effects. Recommended intake. Seniors should aim to eat 6 to 7 eggs per week. This is a safe and appropriate amount that does not significantly raise cholesterol levels for most people. Pair eggs with other foods. To enhance nutritional benefits, pair eggs with fiber-rich foods like vegetables, whole grains, or nuts. This not only balances nutrition but also improves digestion and blood sugar control. Timing. Eggs can be consumed at breakfast or dinner. For those who experience nighttime cramps, a light meal with eggs before bed can supply essential nutrients to support muscle health and prevent contractions. Special considerations. For seniors with a history of heart disease or high cholesterol, opting for egg whites instead of yolks may be a better choice. Consult a healthcare professional to adjust your diet accordingly. Comprehensive benefits of eggs for senior health. In addition to preventing cramps, eggs offer a variety of other health benefits. Boosting immunity, eggs are rich in nutrients like selenium and zinc, which strengthen the immune system and protect against infections. Improving brain health, choline in eggs is vital for maintaining memory and cognitive function, especially in older adults. Enhancing vision, lutein and zeaxanthin, two antioxidants found in egg yolks, help protect the eyes from macular degeneration and cataracts. Eggs, a golden food for muscle and nerve health. With their rich protein, vitamin D, and vitamin B12 content, eggs are an ideal choice for supporting muscle, nerve, and bone health in seniors. Adding eggs to your weekly diet not only helps prevent cramps but also improves overall quality of life, promoting flexibility and strength in daily activities. Start incorporating eggs into your meals today, a simple yet effective way to safeguard your health and enjoy a vibrant, active lifestyle. 2. Bananas. One simple yet highly beneficial food is the banana. Packed with essential nutrients, bananas not only help prevent cramps but also support muscle health, nerve recovery, and overall body balance. Bananas and potassium, the key to strong muscles. Potassium is an essential mineral that plays a crucial role in regulating muscle contractions, transmitting nerve signals, and maintaining fluid balance in the body. A potassium deficiency can lead to uncontrolled muscle spasms, resulting in cramps and soreness, particularly in the legs. Bananas are one of the best natural sources of potassium. On average, a medium-sized banana provides around 400 to 450 milligrams of potassium, replenishing the potassium lost through sweat or daily physical activities. For seniors, the body is more prone to potassium imbalances due to aging or diuretic medications. Including bananas in the daily diet can enhance muscle function, reduce the risk of cramps, and improve flexibility. Magnesium and vitamin B6, the duo for muscle relaxation. Bananas are not only rich in potassium but also contain magnesium, another crucial mineral that helps relax muscles and reduce tension. Magnesium works by regulating calcium ions in the body, aiding in the control of muscle contractions and preventing unexpected cramps. Additionally, vitamin B6 in bananas plays a significant role in maintaining nerve health. This vitamin improves nerve signal transmission, reduces muscle stiffness, and prevents unwanted spasms. The combination of magnesium and vitamin B6 in bananas makes this fruit a perfect choice for muscle and nerve recovery after daily activities. Comprehensive benefits of bananas for seniors. Apart from preventing cramps, bananas offer numerous other benefits for seniors' health. Improved digestion. The fiber content in bananas, especially pectin, helps improve digestion and reduces the risk of constipation, a common issue among older adults. Regulated blood pressure. Potassium in bananas not only benefits muscles but also helps manage blood pressure, reducing the risk of cardiovascular diseases. Natural energy boost. Bananas are a natural energy source, helping seniors stay active and mobile throughout the day. Mood enhancement. Bananas contain tryptophan, an amino acid that helps the body produce serotonin, a hormone that improves mood and reduces stress. How to use bananas effectively. To maximize the benefits of bananas, using them correctly and in the right amount is essential. Recommended intake. Seniors should consume 1 to 2 bananas daily. This amount is sufficient to provide necessary nutrients without causing a sudden spike in blood sugar. Pair with other foods. Bananas can be paired with yogurt, cereals, or nuts to create a balanced and nutritious snack. Best time to eat. Eating bananas in the morning or between meals is ideal for replenishing energy and supporting digestion. Avoid eating bananas on an empty stomach to prevent stomach discomfort. Choose ripe bananas. Fully ripe bananas with a yellow peel and small brown spots are easier to digest and richer in nutrients. Important notes when eating bananas. While bananas are highly beneficial, seniors should also consider the following to avoid potential side effects. Avoid overconsumption. Eating too many bananas can lead to excess potassium, which may cause hyperkalemia, a serious condition affecting heart health. Monitor blood sugar levels. For those with diabetes, opt for moderately ripe bananas and pair them with fiber-rich foods to regulate blood sugar levels. Avoid unripe bananas. Green bananas may cause bloating or indigestion in some individuals. Simple recipes with bananas. To keep things interesting, try these easy banana recipes. Banana smoothie: blend bananas with yogurt, a bit of honey, and some nuts for a nutritious snack. Grilled bananas: slice bananas in half, lightly grill them with honey, and sprinkle cinnamon on top for a tasty dessert. Banana bread: use mashed bananas to bake soft and flavorful banana bread, rich in nutrients. Bananas are not just a common fruit, they are a superfood with remarkable benefits for overall health. With a rich content of potassium, magnesium, and vitamin B6, bananas help prevent cramps, boost muscle and nerve health, and improve various essential bodily functions. Incorporating bananas into the daily diet is a simple yet effective way to protect health, helping seniors maintain an active and comfortable lifestyle. Start today with 1 or 2 bananas daily to experience a positive difference in your body. 3. Nuts and seeds: a nutritional treasure for muscles. In the journey to maintain health and flexibility, especially for older adults, selecting nutrient-rich foods is vital. Nuts and seeds such as almonds, pumpkin seeds, and walnuts are superfoods you can't overlook. These tiny nutritional powerhouses provide not only an abundance of essential nutrients but also improve muscle function, blood circulation, and electrolyte balance, reducing the risk of cramps and enhancing overall vitality. Why are nuts and seeds important for muscle health? Nuts and seeds are nutrient-packed, offering a range of essential minerals for muscle health. Magnesium: a vital mineral that relaxes muscles and prevents uncontrolled contractions. Magnesium also supports enzymatic functions, helping the body efficiently convert energy. Potassium: crucial for maintaining electrolyte balance, potassium aids in nerve signal transmission and muscle contractions. A potassium deficiency may lead to cramps and muscle weakness, particularly in older adults. Healthy fats: rich in unsaturated fats, nuts and seeds provide sustained energy for muscle activity and protect cardiovascular health. Protein: the protein in nuts and seeds helps repair and build muscle, especially important as muscles age or after physical activity. Benefits of specific nuts and seeds for muscle health. Almonds. Almonds are rich in magnesium, vitamin E, and protein. Magnesium helps relax muscles and prevents cramping. Vitamin E acts as a powerful antioxidant, protecting muscle cells from free radical damage. Pumpkin seeds. Pumpkin seeds are a great source of zinc, magnesium, and omega-3 fatty acids. Magnesium supports muscle relaxation and reduces tension. Omega-3 fatty acids have anti-inflammatory properties, alleviating post-exercise muscle soreness. Walnuts. Walnuts are one of the best sources of omega-3 fatty acids. Omega-3s enhance blood circulation and reduce muscle inflammation. Potassium in walnuts maintains electrolyte balance, minimizing the risk of unwanted muscle spasms. How to incorporate nuts and seeds into your daily diet. Recommended amount. Older adults should consume about 30–40 g of nuts and seeds daily, equivalent to a small handful. Regular consumption provides a steady supply of nutrients without excessive calorie intake. Ways to enjoy them. Direct consumption: snack on raw or roasted nuts and seeds for a quick energy boost. Add to meals: sprinkle pumpkin seeds over salads or use crushed almonds as a topping for oatmeal. Homemade snacks: create your own trail mix with a blend of almonds, pumpkin seeds, and walnuts for a convenient, nutrient-rich option. Optimal timing. Consume nuts and seeds mid-morning or in the afternoon for optimal absorption of nutrients and to curb unhealthy cravings. Tips for using nuts and seeds safely. Limit salt intake: opt for unsalted or lightly salted varieties to avoid increasing blood pressure. Check for allergies: test with a small portion first to ensure there's no allergic reaction. Store properly: keep nuts and seeds in airtight containers to avoid moisture and preserve their quality and flavor. Additional benefits of nuts and seeds. Beyond improving muscle health, nuts and seeds offer several other benefits. Cardiovascular health: unsaturated fats and omega-3s help lower bad cholesterol and improve blood circulation. Brain support: walnuts, in particular, are rich in omega-3s that boost brain function and reduce the risk of cognitive decline. Skin health: vitamin E in almonds nourishes the skin and slows down aging. Nuts and seeds: a natural remedy for muscle cramps. Muscle cramps are often caused by an electrolyte imbalance or nutrient deficiencies, especially in older adults. Incorporating nuts and seeds into the daily diet replenishes magnesium and potassium, enhancing muscle function and reducing the likelihood of cramps naturally. Simple recipes with nuts and seeds. Honey roasted pumpkin seeds. Mix pumpkin seeds with a touch of honey and cinnamon. Roast at 150 degrees Celsius for 10 minutes. Enjoy as a nutritious, crunchy snack. Homemade almond milk. Blend 100 g of soaked almonds with 500 milliliters of water until smooth. Strain to extract the milk and sweeten with a bit of honey for flavor. Mixed nut salad. Combine leafy greens, cherry tomatoes, and a mix of seeds, pumpkin, almonds, walnuts. Drizzle with olive oil and balsamic vinegar for a delicious and nutrient-dense salad. Nuts and seeds, a top choice for muscle health. Nuts and seeds are nature's gift to support robust muscle health in older adults. With just a small handful daily, you can boost magnesium, potassium, and healthy fats in your diet, helping to strengthen muscles, prevent cramps, and maintain energy levels. Start incorporating these nutritional treasures into your routine today and enjoy a life full of vitality and strength. If you found this video helpful, please remember to hit the like button. It really helps us bring you more valuable content. Drop a comment below and let us know your thoughts, questions, or what topic you'd like us to cover next. We love hearing from you. Of course, hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications, so you can never miss out on our latest health tips and insights. Stay informed. Stay healthy, and we'll see you in the next video.